Welcome to the 10th Mind Culture podcast. This is our anniversary edition, and today we have two young choreographers,
Kasija,
Kasija, and Ivan, and they just created a new dance company in Linz called
FLIRTY course, but I should correct you a little bit because we don't acknowledge ourselves as a dance company, even though we come from dance background. But we work pretty much interdisciplinary, and we're expanding the understanding of performing format itself. And so using contemporary dance as tool, as aesthetic where we can steal and borrow some inspiration, but we don't define ourselves being inside only dance discourse.
it's more like an art collective for now.
Okay.
Rather than a dance company, yeah.
And we are experimenting a lot with formats, and in the company we, how to say, it's actually kind of company, it's not the word we use, because company is always often associated with a limited amount of people, so it has a clear border. So for example, we are in the company and you are not.
Right.
So the border is here. But FLIRTY course, it's, how to say, it's like a city. So when you're on the main square, you're sure that you're in the city, but the more you go to suburb, at some point you're not sure. It's city or not city, or it's already kind of village nearby, or it's still city. So our collective also consists of people like we are the main square. So we are for sure a company. But then we engage people in very different extent, to a very different extent. Some people work with us in every project, some people arrange projects, we participate, and some people just come as a guest. Some people participate once, some people just come to hang out and to discuss or to watch.
Invite themselves actually. In the
Invite
company,
themselves,
yeah.
but still it's a FLIRTY course, and FLIRTY course it's more like artistic movement than artistic company. It's kind of thing that can take under umbrella a lot of things. It is not bounded by a group of people who are kind of closed in their connection. It's an open thing more. Yeah.
So is it okay? So maybe I think my question is because I think as body architects we have a very similar structure in a way. Like we also have projects, and on some projects we have people that are more often there, and in some projects we have people that are in some projects we have people, a group of people, in some projects we have different group of people, in some projects we have the same people. It's never like very fixed, because it's really hard to keep people fixed if you're like a young choreographer and not being able to pay
You have
them.
an infrastructure of everything, yeah.
But then in that sense you say it's not a dance company. So what is a dance company? Like, how would you define a dance company? I think you've been in a dance company just lately.
I mean, dance company is a company that uses dance as its main expression, and everything revolves around dance. So training and performing, everything is from the aesthetic of dance. And we are kind of using actually all the possible arts any member of the company can imagine. So it's more about ideas. Somebody has an idea of creating something. It can be whatever. It can be a painting, it can be a performance, it can be a lecture, it can be a movie. And we kind of gather together and we do idea. So it's more about doing ideas of different people in different formats rather than sticking to one way of training. Actually, we don't have a particular way of training, particular way of doing things. It's more always how to do a certain idea and what tools do we need to do this idea. And this is always a starting point. It's always a blank page.
And we're developing kind of now, it's in progress, what kind of constant training we want to cultivate between the people. But also like in this quarantine time, we developed a program. So artistic program, we wrote a manifest, and it's very serious, very serious. And one of the things that we cultivate is that each project we do, it has original format. Original means that first of all, it's made up. It's something that is in, like, to some extent better to a big extent, but to some extent it's specific and sort of new in the way that it's not a copied format, it's not taken, like for example, dance performance, it's like 6 people dancing on the empty stage to the music. It's a very clear known format. You can find different variations, but the format is clear. It means we can do it only one time. If we feel inspiration to do people dancing on the stage, we do it one time and we never repeat this. The format should every time be different.
So you don't do a dance piece twice.
No.
Yes.
So you only have one dance piece in your company.
Yes.
Or
I mean, after a while, of course, but yeah.
Not like purely, yeah, we cannot say like this. And yes, so far we didn't do a dance piece in the company, and probably we will do.
so
it
you
in the
leave
future.
leave this opportunity for the time
Yeah.
arriving. Okay. Okay, so you only do dance piece once.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that we don't use dance elements in other projects. So it means it comes when we come like close to such definitions, it become very complicated to say what is dance, what is not dance. But
So what is dance? What is contemporary dance?
probably you tell me.
I don't know. Like I think we have a similar background in a way that you and I studied at the same university. You are also studied at the same university at a very different time, and I've also been fed with a certain definition of what a contemporary dance is versus what modern dance is, for example,
All these divisions.
and what
yeah.
ballet is. So I'm actually curious, maybe. Okay, we're talking formats, but let's just talk language first. So I'm actually curious, like, if you see a definition between contemporary dance and modern dance, or ballet, is there a definition? Is there still any border between those things in the way you see it, or is it something so archaic to divide, movement, to divide styles? Is it an archaic way of thinking, or is it something good to acknowledge? How is it for you?
Yeah, go.
There are for me two kind of these three terms what you mentioned: ballet dance, modern dance, and contemporary dance. There are three terms with different volume for me. Ballet dance, this volume depends for me from the age of this term, of the specifics, and its content also is shaped a little bit by age and duration of practicing. So ballet has very clear historical roots. And what we associate with ballet is a training. It's amount of performances that are repeated for 100 years, like Swan Lake. And it's very concrete mechanics of movement, which is trained, and very pretty much concrete, even though there are variations, but pretty much concrete aesthetics emerging from these mechanics, let's say like this. Modern dance is already a term with another volume, because modern dance is, in my opinion, less unified than ballet. For example, if ballet, the variations between different ballet classes, different ballet teachers, in my opinion, are kind of have less volumes and variation between modern teachers and modern techniques and modern directions, and there are super different classes and super different.
But modern dance is also associated with a period, right?
Yes,
It's
for me, modern dance is a historical term also, which takes a very certain time in 20th century, which geographically is very spread, so from Europe till US and so on. And yes, and contemporary dance, as I understand it, it actually absorbs a lot. It doesn't refer to a particular understanding of body. It doesn't refer to particular training. So contemporary dance like Gaga and Flying Claw, it's both contemporary dance. But it's like not even like parallel lines. It's lines that lie completely in different services. They're not parallel and they don't cross. They just belong to different areas. They are connected in some way because it's a human's body and it's dance, but it's a super different approach, super different understanding. And contemporary dance, it's a very, very, very big field, which involves.
It's a very big field, but it's also a very narrow piece of the market of dance in general. I think. How can something so narrow be so widespread? So I'll put it like differently. How can something so wide encompassing so many different ways of looking at the body can be so at the
So
same time
little
so
people,
little.
you know,
Yes.
and everything. I mean, it's also like philosophy, actually. Philosophy is such a big field, but actually how many philosophers you have. It's also kind of, it's a huge...
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not sure that I understand what you mean by narrow.
because for
field.
example,
Yeah.
if you think of ballet performances and ballet companies, there's many ballet the whole industry is built around that.
amount of people and
The amount of people, the amount of, it's called money, the amount of money that goes into, for example, cultivating ballet is bigger by far than the amount of money that goes into contemporary dance. So it's like if you compare it like with art, it's the amount of money that goes to preserving and exhibiting like old art is much bigger than the amount of
modern
resources that goes to like the cutting edge contemporary dance. So I'm wondering.
No, if we talk about like, now it's a bit other surface. It goes a little bit away from artistic discussion, I find. But if we talk about the context of state theaters or state donations to theaters, it's one thing. But I hardly can imagine someone from free scene who did a ballet variation and shows it on festival just for fun because he loves it. So let's say in the context of state company, state donated company, ballet is the basis, but the world doesn't finish with the entrance of the state theater. So if we say that if we take all the dance experiences of all the directions, probably quantity-wise, yes, maybe there are more ballet dancers, but also I doubt. Do we have the statistics?
I don't have the statistics. I just imagine because,
and the feeling of things is like this.
I have the feeling that, like because things are older, then they are more supported and they are more just common like that. Like every parent knows that they can send their children for ballet classes, but not every parent knows that there exists a contemporary dance for children or something like that.
And what it actually is.
Yes.
And I think it's about the new thing, the kind of old thing, and like it's more secure. You know what it is. You know where it starts, you know where it finishes, you know how it develops, you know what it is. These new things are always okay. What's gonna be in the end? How it's gonna end up?
But then, if we talk about the contemporary dance performance, that we know more or less what it is already. So maybe it's already archaic, in a way that okay, if I go to see a contemporary dance performance, I know that I'm gonna sit, or maybe stand, or maybe they make me walk. But anyway, I'm generally gonna be in a theater, and I'm gonna be looking at people doing strange things with their bodies, maybe singing, maybe
acting, maybe
cutting their bodies, but still I know what they're gonna do more or less. I know what to expect. And you say that you wanna even go take it further.
Yeah, we completely kind of erase this terminology. Actually, we are really it's an idea, and if it's a dance idea or some idea, it doesn't matter if you're gonna do a ballet variation or you're gonna cut yourself on stage. It's kind of we are not actually oriented towards structuring such methodology in this way. It's more about methodology of how we work, how we really work, and not about how we put our bodies together in certain aesthetics or in certain form, bodies or minds or whatever layer of creation it is. But it's really okay, how you put it out, how you really put it out. You and how you and how you, and somebody may do a ballet variation and somebody may do a monologue or edit a video, and in the end when you put together, it's this idea done like this. And you don't question why it's like this.
There is a kind of a rule which so the choice of mediums is determined by the content, let's say like this, and not vice versa. Because when we are operating inside one discipline, it's common, like often mad way of thinking that we develop the, let's say, technique, or I don't know, kit of tools of some discipline, and from experimenting and diving into these tools, we distill some content which comes out of this practice. So the content comes out of the practice of specific thing. But we go from the opposite direction, that we say we are full of practice and we are full of diversified practices. Like I'm the biggest part of my life theater director, so I started to dance very late, and it's for me the second occupation. expression. And for me, it's very normal when I go to stage, I kind of want to say something because in drama theater you speak.
Right.
Now, at some point, you need also to move. And you understand that actually there is no difference. I'm standing on the stage, my body, and I see people there. So it's human and human, and I can actually choose. I don't have inner intention. Once you understand this, it actually, you can with the same good feeling do both things. You ask yourself, what should I do? And the choice is, yes, like Kasija explains it now, it's determined by the content of your message. And we also want to connect to the audience in terms that we want to find some common point and to create some common events between us on stage in the performing space and people who are perceiving this. So it happens in between. And how it happens, yeah, we can use any tools to make it happen in between us and audience.
But then I'm just wondering, because I don't want to like bring too many definitions, but it sounds to me a little bit like something between conceptual art and performance art, which are like two disciplines that are very broad, and then basically they can use any kind of medium of expression, just as you said, and there's already a name for it. But I think it's what I always find problematic with those is, unless let's call them the personal director or the conceptual artist of this performance hires someone who is very good at a certain kind of craft, then they can, unless this happens, which sometimes happens with like a big budget production, like, I don't know, the painter, the Kapoor, is the paint like making like perfect black, and he hires people to paint for him. And unless they don't take someone who is really good at craft, they might fall into a place where they don't do things like, to the highest,
You mean that it stays on the level of concept?
Yes, I'm worried about the value, but I'm worried about like the good,
Good quality.
Good quality, basically. I'm worried about the quality of the work, because when it comes to the concept, for example, if I just give my own example. Like if I totally relate to what you say, but if I wanted to do, I decided today I'm gonna write a poem, and I know I'm not the best writer, but by far I'm almost the worst writer. So if I wanted to write a poem, because the thing that I want to do requires a poem, I know it's gonna be a bad poem, and people not gonna like it. People who are gonna see it, you're gonna see, okay, that's kindergarten person writing. So I wonder how you deal with that problem.
But I think, yeah, it's important to say, how can I say that we have a lot of this now when we talk. It sounds very conceptual, but actually it's not in practice. It's kind of a conversation that happens like behind the camera. We sit and we discuss, okay, what are we actually doing? But once we start to do, it's very practical. It doesn't stay on the level of concept at all. It's a very practical thing. And for example, now this example with the poem, it would not be, I want to do something that requires a poem. It's more about like, I don't know, I want to do this idea, and okay, this part, look, this could be a poem. It just comes, it's not kind of a set, we need to do a poem, and now I'm gonna think about how I write a poem. Because I don't know, if it's a poem necessary, he will already write a poem. It will already be there. Okay, because idea requires this tool to happen. And it will happen. It will not stay on the level of concept. It's very particular. If
somehow I come to the idea that I need for my piece to write a poem, if I really kind of come that, the poem is necessary, it means the lines are already in my head. I cannot come theoretically. It would be nice to have a text here, and then I find out what to do. If I feel necessity to write, it means I have already a precise idea. And I think the two things are also necessary to mention. That first of all, our team is really a team of diversified disciplines professionals. So my background is really theater and dance both, and now it becomes more equally, like, yeah, and we have also in our team actors and musicians, and we are looking for new collaborations. And second of all, I want to ask you back, how do you evaluate what is a bad poem and what is a good poem? This is very, very, very funny because, yeah. Well, for me personally, no, Kasija might disagree with me, but I think there is no good and bad art. There is popular and not popular art. So when a father sings a lullaby for his daughter, and only a daughter is happy, probably even the mother of this daughter is really
Unhappy.
With this lullaby. But it means this song has one audience member who is a fan. Bach has more audience in the world. But it means Bach is more popular than this lullaby, and it doesn't mean anything else, because how we can say? Because this small child is probably super disgusted by Bach harmonies. It's not comprehensive for this person. And coming to evaluating art, that some art is better and some it's worse, we necessarily will come that some people are better and some are worse, which I find nonsense. So it's very hard to talk about craft, because I find that craft gives up when we come to authenticity, and every authentic thing is beyond craft. Like, I don't know, Van Gogh's paintings, it's a very stupid chrestomatic example, but they're not correct. I mean, you cannot say about craft, it's genius, and you can learn from this practice, and you can make a school out of this practice, but it's not correct. It's like, there are a lot of examples like this in art history, I think.
Yes, but I think there is, how to say, yes, but at the same time, like, there's some advancement made in a lot of disciplines, and it's somehow for me hard to think of going back. So for example, if I think of, what's his name? If I think of Duchamp, so there was a period of history where you say, okay, everything is deconstructed, we do it as if it's already done. So we do ready-made. And for me, it almost feels like, okay, it's done. This process, like the process of giving up everything, is already done. So from now on, there is no, like, if you do it again,
it's fake.
then you just fake, you're repeating. Like, I see it constantly in contemporary dance, cutting edge contemporary dance, that people are reinventing the wheel. They're like, suddenly we don't have to dance. Suddenly we can be naked. Like, all of these things, they already done. There is no place for it in a way as another revolution. So I feel like there's no place for another revolution. And I feel like there's a lot of both conceptual and technical advancement made in every art form. So for example, I can say that the writing today is so good that we should just, learn from it, that the dance movement, generally knowledge is so good that we should just not give it up. The film, the way of looking through the camera, like today, you're not gonna do another Metropolis.
Yes, of course.
It makes no sense. So that's where I see the craft. So the craft for me is having practiced a certain thing for time long enough that this practice just shines through whatever you do. And that's why I say, for me, it would be very difficult to write a poem because I don't have a practice of writing. And if you look at my poem, you will see, oh, that's a shit poem. And it's not because you might not like, it's not because maybe someone likes the poem, but let's say that generally people will see that I haven't been writing poems for...
It will not talk to them.
Yeah, and I think this is what I think with equality. So for me personally, but this is my personal, I don't accept someone going on stage and not having an idea of how to speak or how to walk or just generally of their own body. So this ready-made thing for me, it's not a thing anymore because first of all, it's done, it's outdated, and I want to see the advancement that already done incorporated into a new concept. Yes, but I want to see that. For example, that's to answer your question.
But should we then divide kind of learning from existing techniques or practicing something? It sounds to me like two different things, because I can completely agree with you that yes, one thing which for me it's also very important, that a person who creates art is practicing his or her way of doing, and that is for me pretty much, how to say, necessary condition of doing art. You are doing regularly, you're practicing. But for me, learning and getting knowledge, it's a bit other thing, because learning and getting knowledge from existing examples of something, it's one process, and practicing, it's getting knowledge basically from universe and from yourself. It's in a way inventing knowledge, and way of practicing, it's much more rewarding, because you cannot repeat. You can repeat if you have material to copy. If you don't have material to copy, even if you accidentally make a similar thing, it will be looking different, because the way to access this will be authentic, because it's a concrete moment of time and concrete environment and your concrete body that practices concrete current thing. Then all the similarities will be actually probably not so apparent, and I'm not actually very supporting this opinion that you need to learn history in order to know how not to repeat. I would learn history retrospectively. If I could make a program for a school, I would start to learn from today, not from ancient times, but to arrive at ancient times on the last course, and to learn it retrospectively to understand, because it's more useful for an artist. For historian probably it's nonsense, but for an artist it's more useful to see and then to see, aha, this came from somewhere, and then you go to the past, but you start from what is now. And that makes you not repeat, and be authentic and be current.
And also this, what you said, that it's enough of this, like we're not gonna dance, we're gonna do this and that. It's our focus is somehow not on this. It's not about, it's not the focus of our work. It's somehow just by the way, actually. It's not kind of, we really want to invent now something. It's not the focus. The focus is, okay, what are we actually doing? I don't know, he wrote, for example, our next project will be, he wrote a screenplay. So it was supposed to be a movie. Cool. And now it's not going to be a movie, it's going to be a reading session and an open reading with a minimalistic interpretation with actors and dancers. So it's going to be already some weird format that comes from something. And so the point is not let's do something that nobody saw ever, but it's kind of, okay, we have this screenplay and we have this amount of people. Okay.
How it can be practiced,
We cannot move too much, it's Corona, okay, we can sit, we can do minimal interpretations, you have a screenplay, amazing, okay, let's do an open rehearsal, let's invite a lot of people, and it just kind of comes, and then in the end you have something completely new, but the point is not to create it, the point is kind of to arrive to this moment.
Yeah, it's actually like a good example, because it's not a revolutionary thing, but it's kind of original, I find, in a specific format, when people sit on the chairs and read out loud a screenplay for a Hollywood thriller with chasing and FBI agents. I would not call it revolutionary that nobody saw, but kind of I don't remember imagine the examples that I really saw it every day. And it's something specific. It's not revolutionary that kind of, oh my God, but it's specific. And it's what we mean, that because it's authentic to what it is. And
it's not about also dancers now trying to read an actor's screenplay. It's more about people now just doing this, and him as a director kind of leading this process. But
we have also actually a lot of examples, like Pina Bausch dancers, they almost never dance. They are dancers and they train dance every day and they are very good at this. But in the performances, like the biggest part of Pina Bausch performances, they don't dance. They act and do some weird object and physical theater. And it is not like she very often doesn't talk through movements, even though the movement is a necessary base and environment. And when they have a 2/8 combination, it's brilliant. But this 2/8 combination happens once in an hour, and 1 hour around is something else. And these people, they don't have acting education. They're dancers, they have dance education, but it's brilliant.
So you mean like taking the dance education and like remediating it to something else? So for example, because I can do a great because I can do greatly movement, I probably can somehow through this practice, I can somehow translate it or transmit it to a different format. So do you think that's possible?
Yes, I mean, I think it's also more about taking this training as a tool for your body to be in a certain state rather than being able to do something, but more about, it's a routine, it's a practice. It can also be, I don't know, I do a training, whatever it is, and I stare at this pole for 1 hour a day. If this is something that kind of consciously brings me somewhere as a tool to use and not as I'm just doing some weird stuff, but no, this kind of brings me somewhere. I think it's more about this approach to also training, dance training.
I've heard also such a phrase, I don't remember, it was one of the dancer, it was dancer giving an interview, but I don't remember now particularly, but he said such a thing that if you know where you are, if you're aware where you are and which year is now, it's actually doesn't matter what you train. You can train whatever if you're still aware where you are and which year it is. It's training. Training brings you something. You can be very diversified. You can do also ballet every day, but it depends on your mind, how you approach creation, because creation, say we don't take creation immersion from training. It's a parallel processes, and you can train anything and then go to stage and do something completely else. And also, what is great movement again? It's very now. I hear you saying this, and I don't know.
Well, I can tell you.
Yeah, tell me.
What great movement is. Can stand on one leg, can jump, can roll without hitting yourself. This kind of simple things. I'm not saying aesthetically, but functionally your body is working.
But this is exactly functionally. So I think it's more about practicing your functionality about things. But functionality is okay. There is a body functionality, but also we don't have it yet. But we are developing a certain methodology how to make our practice. So what we train, we want to make a certain training, but not only body, it's also how you train your mind of creating, approaching the creational process and everything. So it's more elements than just be functional in the body. Of course, this is an amazing base that I can just stand on my one leg, but if I cannot, what else is there?
But I think also it's very nice for contemporary dance to switch this perspective a bit, just to switch it in mind, because what particularly we are meaning saying about this one leg, standing on one leg, it's not a big deal. I mean, it depends on the level. Making 2-3 pirouettes, it's much more complicated, but who honestly needs 3 pirouettes if you're not in ballet company? If you're in ballet company, yes, you need to train every day and you need to keep up, and that's the point of this. If you're doing contemporary dance, I mean, you will not have it in choreography because it's archaic. It's ballet element.
It really depends, because you can achieve specialization in any movement.
But there's a thing, if you want to be able to express yourself for 3 periods, then you have to go and do and practice.
Yes, of course. If you're a ballerina, practice pirouettes, and you will be good at this, and you can express yourself. But if you, I don't see the sense of doing something very good if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, of course.
And you can spend your life training your pirouettes and say, now I can do it, and now I can start my life and dance, and I can do this.
But I
have trained this before instead of pirouettes.
This is for me a very important conversation, because I came to the dance world without knowing what dance is. So, for example, I didn't know I want to do contemporary choreography. I didn't know I want to be an artist. I knew dance is nice. I can do dance, and then in order to be a dancer, you need to train this and this. Okay, that's what they told me. So I was practicing ballet, and I think this awareness. I don't think many people reach that awareness that you're talking about, because it's what actually do I need to train in order to be what I want to be? Sometimes you have no answer to this question, even as a choreographer, because especially as a young choreographer, you don't know what your movement language, movement vocabulary is. You don't know what you want to express. You don't know how. So you have to train different things and figure this out. And I think this process of figuring it out is about training things that maybe is gonna be useless for you.
Yes.
And maybe just by figuring out like tons of useless things, then maybe in the end you find something that you like. Maybe.
Yes, exactly. This. No, my experience was in this way specific. I started to dance at the age 27. And yes, I did my first ballet class at age 27. And I went like, I started to do it in Estonia, where dance is not so much developed. And then I spent like one dance summer in Russia before I went to Germany. And I should say, like the whole impression, I didn't know what you say. I didn't know that ballet is that important. I didn't know that modern dance exists at all. I didn't know that it exists because there are other things practiced around, and I didn't know a lot of things that are super basic beginning for a lot of professional dancers. And nevertheless, I'm super happy that I didn't know, because yes, I came after years to understanding that ballet training is very important. But also, this is for me I'm grateful for like the universe that I came to this understanding from this side, that I know why it's important. I didn't take it for granted. It's important that you need to learn from it until you die. But yes, I know, like yes, to standing on one leg, to have a straight axe, like to jump, to turn, but also like ballet understanding like of turning, it's really particular, it's really specific, and all these technical elements, they have a particular solutions. If you want to turn without having your pelvis on the axe, it's a little bit other mechanics. And ballet helps, of course, to develop also other mechanics. Of course, it's a basic understanding of some things, but also, if you want to turn, if you want to develop other mechanic of turn, for example, turn in spiral, turn when pelvis is not on the axe, turn when you're turn and fall, I don't know, turn inside a spiral jump. Ballet will help. If you're well trained in ballet, you of course will probably achieve it easier, but it's about achieving easier, and it's not about coming to the point. And also, I find like a lot of examples I know, of course it's not a common case, but people who train ballet for years, they got very particular patterns of thinking about movement. Sometimes it happens still, that this aesthetics is kind of, it gets into blood, and people really dancers have a very particular understanding of beauty and aesthetics of movement, which I find sometimes a bit reducing just the openness of looking at things. It might happen, it happens not always, of course, and I cannot say that it's a kind of catastrophe, but it happens that, you reduce yourself by having preference in training. Let's say like this.
Yeah, I think this is what I've always been struggling, but in myself, I always been struggling with that, because I also did ballet for 7 years before I went to study contemporary dance, and then I was struggling to get rid of the contemporary dance training as well. And it's just like once you get into certain training, like you get a certain patterns, but some are functional, some are fine. You get better at normal things like running or jumping, or you learn some interesting coordination, but often you learn as well like aesthetic, and that's from a point of view of choreography, I always find this very destructive. Like when I go, for example, like when I go to see a performance, now I'm a little bit more immune to this, but as I watch a lot, and I've always been watching a lot, but there was a time where I was like so allergic to, I was nitpicking patterns that are no, like, okay, it's not necessary this to be there, like it doesn't help you to express anything, you just do like a dancing move that you learn. And this is for me a problem, like, because if it's just about beautiful movement, fine, but if you're trying to do something completely different and you don't know how, and you're just putting like a dance move, there's this thing, I think this is...
When you're using actually dance just as a tool, by the way, then you kind of actually insult all this beautiful technique, because sometimes technique, it's really beautiful to watch something so virtuosic in technique, it's beautiful. But if you just use an element because you have no content to put it otherwise, then like it's a bit insulting, in some way. Maybe it's a heavy word, but it's a pity. And that's why it's moreover like what other tools do dancers, let's say just now in this, what else can we use? What is the content, what is the personal content, you know, like dancer, okay, but it's not just the body. What are you bringing as a personality? What are you bringing as a soul, as I don't know, as a universe of being, you know, except of, I don't know, something super beautiful.
Nice.
So, yeah.
It's also like I came now like a thought came that like the sense of this interdisciplinary approach that we practice is like imagine you can do on stage literally whatever. So you have all the palitra, all the palette, like you can sing, you can talk, you can dance, and then you choose to dance. Your dancing is very different when it's a free choice. If you choose a movement as a medium, even though you can do anything. Then how
Really,
how you dance then in
Yes.
the circumstances? That is a thing, yeah.
I think that's a very nicely put. That's why I think it's really important to expand always your medium. I'm totally for it. Like we are also interdisciplinary,
Yeah.
and we also do, I don't know, something between circus and sometimes physical theater, sometimes very abstract things, specific things. It's like it's always something else, and I think this is. But what I find always difficult is that it's the process of learning a new form of expression takes a very long time. So, for example, just to say that we have this process now that I wanted to do physical theater. Everyone in this group wanted to do physical theater, but we had no idea how to do it because we've always been working in this different style, like more abstract, more image-based, and now it's story, and we have no idea how to do story. I have no idea how to do story. Like it took 2 years to transition to be able to be confident with the work. And probably it's still not so great, but it's it's a long process to acquire a new medium in a way. Like I always have but I think every artist many artists have this like not being satisfied with things very easily. So if I look at my work, like I can very rarely get satisfied. So it really took like 2.5 years
to be okay with it.
To be okay with it, and a constant reworking of everything, of this one piece, constantly reworking it.
But it's a sense of our process as well, yeah. We are making it the process, not that we are confident on.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, well, it sounds really exciting. I'm really curious what you're gonna do. I'm really curious. I already seen your dance works, but dance, it's different because we know how to do it, and I'm curious. Theater, I'm really curious about it because it sounds really, especially the screenplay. For example, for me, like I'm really excited about screenwriting in a way that it's something that I feel so uncomfortable with. Like I can do the camera work. So if we're talking about cinema, I can do the camera work and the images. But the screenwriting, it's like I would be the most afraid of all the.
To indulge yourself in.
Deals with word, and this is like my biggest weakness in a way.
Yeah, but that's why we always collaborate also. You kind of have an idea, but you open yourself that people come into this project who can actually enrich the process in some way.
Yes, so when people tune in into one wave, you can really
And how do you? And another question, very different question about dreams. I'm curious because now you have this big thing going on. How do you see yourself? Like, what? If you imagine, I don't know if you ever do it, but do you imagine yourself in 5 years? Do you imagine yourself in 10 years? And what is like your dream reality? Because like I remember when I was let's say starting choreography, I said like, okay, in 5 years I'll be famous. Okay, 5 years later. Okay, in 5 years this kind of thing. So I'm wondering, how is your perspective, or how is the contemporary perspective in this way of people who are starting now, like this common thing? I'm not saying that you don't have like a big experience already, but how is it?
No, we can like I wanted to say about like you can tell your story, but I wanted to say about the Flirty Horse itself, because Flirty Horse we didn't mention today one thing which is very important for us. That flirty horse is a concept which denies institution of authorship.
Okay.
So in flirty horse, we don't mention our names. And flirty horse is a label which labels art pieces, and it's never accompanied by the names of creators. So if you do a piece, it's a piece by flirty horse. There is no particular choreographer, and not particular designer, and not particular dramaturg. And that is a very funny thing, because if somebody we now just developed, so we did a few pieces and we didn't have so much occasions to try it out, but the concept sounds like this: that if we do a collaboration, a person can choose. If you choose to be a part of Flirty Horse, your name will not be mentioned. But we always write Flirty Horse and guests. So if you want to be a guest, you
then
can be
your
a guest.
name is mentioned.
Then your name is mentioned. If you want to be a part of the company, your name is not mentioned. And you're a Flirty Horse, and you just put your body and so on. And in 5 years, I would like to see that Flirty Horse is really a movement, because Flirty Horse, it's a label, and it's a simple logo that we designed with my friend from Russia, who is Russian theater designer, together. And someone in, I don't know, in US, in Malaysia, in Zimbabwe, can start to be a part of Flirty Horse. The only thing, you need to do art piece to label it Flirty Horse and not mention your name. And in 5
It
years,
doesn't have
I
to be
see-
connected with us at all,
Yes,
personally.
we don't
in any
care.
way.
And in 5 years, I hope it will be another coronavirus. It will be everywhere. And this logo will be drawn with a chopstick, like on the floor, in the main squares, and people will do the pieces without any responsibility, without any artistic, how to say, tension. Is it good or bad? Because it's not personal. It's a part of Flirty Horse, and Flirty Horse, it's how to say, it's augmentation of reality. It's not a statement artist versus audience. It's when a tree grows, it's a tree. It doesn't think what information it brings. It's an augmentation of reality. It's a part of reality. And our idea is that it becomes a movement, that everybody can join and everybody can be free in this depersonalization, let's say, because you don't have to justify yourself as an artist. You can already do, and you can say it's a Flirty Horse and nobody will check. And we see this as a movement which makes everybody that understands that everybody can be an artist. It's very simple. You don't need to have education. You don't need to have justification. You don't need to have concerns if it's good or bad. And if putting your name on it, it makes you responsible. Makes you say, I did it. But you can put Flirty Horse.
You have no
You have
responsibility
no responsibility.
about
So
it.
if you do something that you don't want to,
Yeah. I mean, of course, we are now
Flirty Horse.
starting this seed, so we are kind of putting some idea about the Flirty Horse as some mythological creature, and we are writing a story about
Yeah,
it.
that's why
And
we-
kind of it's starting from something.
We're creating mythology.
Yes.
It's also a way of thinking that, yes, also what we say now, it sounds a bit anarchic that, yes, somebody can film a porn video and label it like this. Of course, it's also possible. But the thing is that already the whole idea of putting this label on some uncontrollable piece of art, it also already directs some understanding of things. And we are cultivating this mythology and this understanding around, which is also to be spread, to become a movement. Because also to make such a thing, if you somebody watches this podcast, I don't know, somewhere in Budapest or in Paris, then people decide, oh, maybe I really do like this and label it Flirty Horse. I can imagine myself in this situation and I would feel weird. And to feel not weird to do this, you also need to get a little bit in this idea and understand what it means.
So it's like a church, the Church of Flirty Horse.
The word church has a religious connotation. We would avoid to connect it like this.
But
It's-
mythology would be more correct.
Mythology, it's more correct. It's a movement. It's mythology based on some mythology, some contemporary mythology, which is written together and also
Which is developing now. It's starting to be written now.
yes, and we did a web page, also flirtyhorse.com, that everybody can visit, and it was based on it was meant first to be info source about the company, but once we started to do this, we realized that we don't want it to be user-friendly.
And also, we never did a web page until that moment, so it became a crazy project.
So it's a maze, basically. It's a labyrinth that you go through, like chaotic links, and you don't actually. It takes time to understand how it's structured because it's chaotic, and you go through amount of parables. And these parables bring you to this idea, but also like you need to read kind of all the parables. It's like with mythology. Every story in mythology has different versions, and they all together create some
event,
some psychological event.
Like hyperlink text.
Yes.
Sounds really interesting. So you don't see yourself as a like a huge superstars of contemporary dance scene, rather than as a movement.
As a movement, yes, which has a lot of layers, from performative layer, educational layer, and
And how do you see yourself? Okay, so that's a FLIRTY horse. And how does even Strelkin and
Kasija.
still exist? Or do they exist? Like they have to somehow make a living, and I wonder what they do. What are the dreams? Because I understand there is this movement, there's this mission, there's this idea, but I'm wondering about your personal life. Like
There is always this layer again about the personal content. So every artist should be responsible for its own personal content. Therefore, I don't know. In the moment we are studying, we are writing academically, extensively. So I don't know, this is something that me personally, I feel enriched from. I'm very careful about what I watch, what kind of movies I watch, how I think about things. So it's always kind of developing and cultivating your personal content in order to kind of then put it into this whole FLIRTY horse universe and artistic universe. So kind of there is always this huge responsibility and care about what I personally bring, but it's an inner kind of feeling.
And about making a living, there are all the ways. Like we're basically like talking in this service, we are freelance artists. So telling our ideas and spreading the word about this movement, we are still also part of this movement, and we are happy to be hired, let's say.
To do pieces, to do workshops,
I completely agree also, and it also connects with the idea of different formats, because what we already do, we do FLIRTY horse workshops, which are like, we did one here in Wrocław with, like, also it happened to be a repertoire workshop, but it's workshop like repertoire from our piece and the training we do site-specific performances, what we do in Linz, and that's all also we do, and we have, funding from donations. So we arrange this and we do like
performances in bars. And
yes, we don't do communism out of this idea that we don't get money from our work. Our work is valuable.
And also it's very important that it's no authorship and it's not anonymous.
Yes,
so this is kind of a very huge difference. We are not anonymous.
We are not hiding ourselves as personalities. We exist.
Just as there is no sign under the piece of art. This is a huge difference.
And I also completely see that we can do a piece with a kind of ballet company, and it can be FLIRTY horse on the stage of Paris Opera. And there is for me no contradiction. I would be happy to hire at Paris Opera, for example. We can come and do this beautiful. That we can come and we can do in the very concrete state structure with the beautiful professionals. We can also do something ours, because we think it can be a great connection. Because how we see it also, I have experience of working with state theaters, and it is a very particular also state of mind. Both, like I worked in drama theaters and state theaters, and I worked as a choreographer also with a company. And it's a very particular way of creating repertoire and creating this policy. And if, for example, we could do a FLIRTY horse piece, which is really a FLIRTY horse piece in a state theater, in a state ballet company, or in a state drama theater, it will be basically this magic, sudden mixture of free scene and huge institution. Because I think we are super able to bring this.
This used to be happening, I think, in the, I don't know, the Belarus, for example, or like this whole period where we had like Kandinsky doing stage design and all of this. big alternative. I mean, big like now big, but
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
alternative, artists going into the theater realm and mixing
And
in actually. Because
influencing.
nowadays I feel like there's the state theater world, and if you're not in the circle, you're not coming in at
Yeah.
all. It's like there's no way to enter.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I would love to work in a heated theater, for example, with a place to work, like where
Yeah.
everyone knows that they're coming to work, and
Yeah.
it's very different than a freelance
Yeah.
situation where you have to rent cold rooms with bad floor. Like it's a very different way to work. And of course, I would love to work in this, but in this theater setting. But I feel that the way to enter is very hard because these words don't mix. These words don't mix.
It would be also like one of
Always.
our dreams to have space and to have opportunity, to work,
Yeah, to have our own space.
to have our own space and to work, and it allows a lot of things. Of course, it's easier, but it's one also, like how I perceive it, it's one of the things we do. It's not something we strive as a kind of priority. Our priority is doing art, and
In any form, any format.
in any format, and also like being freelancer, there are a lot of advantages, even though it's financially unstable and complicated, but it has advantages as well. So yes, we are having like some ideas and plans to come to the point that we can find a space, and somehow in some perspective we would appreciate to have our own space, but I would not say that it's something that is really kind of a condition of what we are doing. Yeah.
Nothing is actually really a condition. Everything is more like, what is it now? And yeah, it's really about now.
So in a way, planning in 5 years is difficult because you don't know what's gonna happen, like what kind of route it's
Yeah.
gonna take.
And it's somehow not a priority to plan.
Being a freelancer gives you opportunities of freedom, and then you deny the institution of authorship, which is how to say, like from my experience as a contemporary maker in the market of contemporary dance, and I'm talking about avant-garde contemporary dance, the name always comes first. So you can have a company and it can be called a thing. Example, Max Stewart and Damaged Goods. It's always gonna be about Max Stewart because people wanna see, like at least the curator, the people who choose works, they wanna see work from a specific choreographer. So for example, if you say like I'm gonna hire Flirty Horse, that'll be difficult, very difficult, because you don't know what you're going to get. But if I can say I'm gonna hire Ivan Strelkin, then I know what kind of choreography I'm gonna get, more or less. Even if it's across different media, but the way of thinking I'm going to get, it's gonna be from Ivan. So I'm or Kasija. I'm wondering how do you relate to that problematics? Because it's just it sounds a little bit for me as a great mission, like Dada or like all those artistic movements, futurism or anything of that matter that had to do with manifest. But I feel that when it comes to the market and actually buying work, it usually comes with a name. Like Joseph Beuys is a name. You don't buy like a performance art. You buy Joseph Beuys. You buy Marina.
I mean, I would say that, of course, this is still a concept that needs to be tested in practice, and it's always going to develop through kind of when it starts to be practiced after this quarantine and everything. But again, it's not about being autonomous, so it's not about disregarding personal identity. So whoever, I don't know, hires him to make a choreography, he goes and talks as a person, as Ivan. So kind of he doesn't kind of hide behind Flirty Horse. Flirty Horse is a brand that is put everywhere on the outside image. But personally on the meeting with the director, with intendant, with someone, always sits a person, or I don't know, two people, or I don't know if they hire 3 people, or I don't know, but it's always it's an image of a person, it's a personal identity that speaks with a person, but on the outside it's a brand, it's not him taking kind of credits for the work.
Yes, it is a thing that, yeah, if we are invited, of course we will sign the contracts with our names, but then, yes, I also understand your point, how the producer think and how the producers sell the names, and yeah, I think we will just do like the best to say you can write Kasija, Vrbanac and even Strelkin if you want, but you can also contribute to a legend. And if you can evaluate how much it is that you don't have our names, but you have Flirty Horse in your selling thing, like in your advertisement, and how much it could mean, and what are we doing now. And then, yeah, we are not crazy, we are not conflict people, we are not pushing our ideas like violently.
It's negotiation and yeah.
What I like about the idea of Flirting Horse that it's really, even if it's kind of will never happen in the art history, and still like we are the only three people who will be aware of this idea, but still it's a kind of a small legend. We are creating a small legend. We are creating a small unpopular mythology. And this is what is nice. It is much more than me. It is much more than my name. And yes, once it comes to like selling our piece from the name of Paris Opera, we will try to make our best to understand that even Paris Opera, it's not that big than this idea. So
yeah, I hope so, because I mean, that is maybe my personal thing, because what I find it difficult. So, for example, I can the problem of identification nowadays. For example, you work with an artist, a different artist, and you work under a label of Flirty Horse on a project. That one artist that you work with identifies as himself, and he's gonna first promote himself or herself, and it's gonna be difficult for this artist to put an extra effort, like already any kind of extra effort, but an extra effort to contribute to a label that is not just him. So I have this problem a lot. Like I work with great people, with like amazing, in my opinion, amazing people, but it's hard for me to expect from them that they will label things as body architects. I would love that they identify more, but it's hard to make people identify, from my experience, identify with something that is just beyond a little bit more than themselves.
The personal level, yeah.
So I think that, like, I'm sure you're very nice people, probably much nicer than me, and it probably is much easier to identify with an idea of a Flirty Horse than with body architects, but I also find it's just difficult, like practically difficult, because people just have to have so much to do, and they have so much on their plate that, like, you really need to believe in this idea in order to give a little bit more to this. Even if I manage to organize projects and like actually get money for this, it's even then it's not enough to identify with this in your free time. So that I find, and I wonder how you're gonna do it.
No, we also wonder. I mean, you're right. This is this fragile, thing that you don't know. For example, we have one colleague, and she's now starting to do a project, which is kind of really a dance piece with two guys, and she really asked, like, is it okay that I label this as Flirty Horse project? So kind of it really came. But we also have some people that are kind of in our company, in our collective, who are now doing pieces and projects that don't mention it as a Flirty Horse at all. So kind of it's also, to test a bit your own ego and your own, it's also like Flirty Horse, it's not us only. So kind of it's a proposed idea. So if I feel weird about it, it's my problem in a way, my personal problem. And how I engage more this idea, then it's also my personal choice. What do I do? Do I ask a person? Do I ask, can you also give me, maybe this we will publish on our webpage as a part of Flirty Horse? Do I make an extra effort? So it's really a live process how to but we will not make contracts to, I don't know, oblige people to do so, because then this would be super contradictory to everything. So yeah, it's kind of in a way, if it catches, it catches. Like
I mean, you cannot press people to identify with something.
Yeah.
They either identify or they don't
Exactly.
identify. But I always find like in my dream, people will identify more.
yeah,
But I think we live in a world where in order to identify with something, you really need to believe in it and it's hard to believe in things. It's hard to believe in things when you know it can just be a complete failure, like from a day to another day. And I'm just wondering, it's for me, like I'm trying to build a dance company, but I'm trying to build a dance company. I mean, a company. We are interdisciplinary as well, but I'm trying to build it like since I don't know, years. Since I don't know, it's always been my dream. But we have achievements, but we don't have like a structure that I can say, or you can be with us and for sure gonna be paid, or for sure gonna be in this project, or for sure this project is gonna happen, or for sure we're gonna be touring. None of this is for sure. There's no for sure. Like from one day to another, they can be like,
yes.
and then I find it's hard to identify. So, for example, if you are Google or Apple, it's maybe people identify with the people who identify with the company more. But I feel in the art world, either you extremely believe like an idea. That's why I said church. So either you create a church, or I'm just asking and questioning this issue of identification.
Maybe I'm not church, but maybe, I don't know, a certain like terminologies, ideology would be more kind of close, because if you kind of connect with this artistic ideology, you identify. I don't know, of course we also want to have a lot of money and be able to pay people for projects and say, okay, now we have 10 people and you have all the money in the world and be a flirty horse now, and this can end in 6 months, and then we are again, I don't know how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
The thing is, but actually in the reality,
Right?
It died.
you don't have any sound?
No, I have sound. No, it's here. So yeah.
No, the thing is that in the reality, in our group now that is active together, like people all have jobs, or they have kind of more or less stable source of money, a part of this work, which basically means that people spend their free time on doing pieces with us.
Okay.
And this is already tells something, that you can choose to go, I don't know, to bar to drink a beer or to watch cinema and to spend time with your family, but yeah, people choose to do pieces with us. This is the thing, it's not a job. It doesn't mean that it should not be paid. It can be paid, but it should be paid, and we want to kind of also we aim to make our living out of our work, but we still don't perceive it as a job. It's activity that is supported, and I have like image how it probably was on the beginning of humanity, when people were just working, like, I don't know, collecting stuff in the field and killing animals to eat, and then somebody like heard that someone is singing somewhere, they say, oh, it's so beautiful, and they came to sing, like sit around and started to listen. And they say, can you sing more? He says, no, I need to go to kill some animals. I'm hungry. They say, we will feed you, just continue singing, we like. That is how it works. It's not a work. It's somehow donated. Yeah, it can be donated through audience, donated through government, but it's a support of, how to say, support of
The community for the work.
Yes, because some people are killing animals to feed the community, and it's appreciated and it's valuable. Some people sing, and it's also appreciated and valuable, and we exchange. But it's not a job. It's not something to sell. It's something to share, and yeah, that's how we see it.
I think this is the major difference here with you and me in a way, this way. So yeah, nice. I like it. I like it. I like what you do, and I like what you say. I wish you the best luck, I think.
Thank you.
This is going to be really interesting. I will watch you.
Yes, we will.
We will.
And you're coming to perform at Craft Choreography,
Yes.
which is this, what is it, Thursday?
17th Thursday.
4 days.
And if you're interested in their work, like we're gonna have it in Erbsenfabrik live, but we're also gonna have online live streaming. So please join us on this channel, and yeah, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you
It was a pleasure.
for the opportunity.